You eat a meal and you expect your body to just handle it. But what happens when the whole system gets its wires crossed? When a simple meal kicks off this cascade of really confusing, even contradictory symptoms? Well, today we're diving into a fascinating medical mystery that happens right after you eat. Okay, so let's set the stage with a real-world case. Picture a 38-year-old woman who's recently had gastric bypass surgery. She starts noticing something really strange. After she eats, two very different things happen. She gets super dizzy, like the room is spinning, but at the same time she gets these intense, crampy pains in her stomach. So what on earth is going on? How could one meal cause both dizziness and stomach cramps? These two things feel totally unrelated, right? This is clearly more than just a simple case of indigestion. It's something much, much more specific. And the answer has a name that's, well, pretty descriptive. It's called dumping syndrome. And yep, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's all about food moving or dumping way too quickly from the stomach into the small intestine. And it's a really common complication after certain kinds of stomach surgery. Now, here's the really interesting part. This isn't just one single event. It's more like a physiological drama that unfolds in two acts. You've got what's called an early dump, which happens right away, and then a late crash that comes a bit later. And each one has its own unique cause and its own set of symptoms. So let's start with Act 1, the early dump. This is that immediate gut-level reaction. This is what's causing all that abdominal pain our patient was feeling. It's a very physical, very direct response from the body. The trigger for this whole thing is something called a hyperosmolar load. Now, that sounds super technical, I know, but just think of it like this. After stomach surgery, the food, especially if it's full of sugar or simple carbs, doesn't get broken down properly. Instead, it rushes into the small intestine as this thick, highly concentrated blob. And that dense slug of food is what kicks everything off. So here's the chain reaction that follows. First, that super concentrated food hits the intestine. Your body's immediate reaction is, whoa, we need to dilute this now. So through osmosis, it starts pulling a ton of water from your bloodstream and tissues right into your gut. This sudden flood of water causes the intestine to stretch out or distend, and that is what causes that sharp, crampy pain and pretty soon, diarrhea. And get this, the timing is key. We're not talking hours later. This all happens incredibly fast, usually within 30 to 45 minutes of finishing a meal. So that explains the immediate pain, for sure. But remember, that's only half the story. Now for Act 2, the late crash. Just when that stomach pain might be starting to fade, a completely different reaction is gearing up behind the scenes. And this is the part that explains the vertigo. The cause this time isn't physical, it's hormonal. Because that big load of food was dumped into the intestines so quickly, all the sugar from it gets absorbed into the bloodstream at lightning speed. The body sees this massive sugar spike and basically panics. It overreacts by releasing a huge, excessive surge of insulin to deal with it. And here's that second chain reaction. The rapid sugar absorption triggers that massive insulin release. But the body just overshot the mark. The insulin works too well, and it pulls so much sugar out of the blood that the blood sugar level just plummets. This is something called reactive hypoglycemia, and the symptoms are exactly what our patient felt: vertigo, weakness, dizziness, and feeling totally wiped out. And this is where it all clicks into place. You've got the early dump, which is basically a plumbing problem caused by a massive water shift, and it happens almost right away. Then, an hour or 3 later, you get the late crash, which is a hormonal overreaction. Two completely different mechanisms, two totally different sets of symptoms, all triggered by the very same meal. It's wild. So you might be wondering, why doesn't this happen to everybody? What makes someone susceptible to this? Well, the context is everything. It all comes down to a change in someone's internal anatomy. At its core, this is what's known as a post-gastrectomy complication. That's just a fancy way of saying it happens to people who've had surgery on their stomach, exactly like the gastric bypass our patient had. These procedures can change how the stomach empties, getting rid of that normal, slow, controlled release of food and creating the perfect conditions for that rapid dumping we've been talking about. So when you really think about it, it's pretty incredible how one single anatomical change can set off this bizarre 2-act play of symptoms. It starts with a physical plumbing-related crisis, and that's followed by a systemic hormonal crisis. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
just how tightly connected is our body's mechanical plumbing to its delicate hormonal wiring, and how easily can a change in one throw the other completely off balance.